Hello, it is Creature, and today we're going to be talking about Founder's Fortune. Founder's Fortune is a colony building sim, an emphasis on the sim part, but we'll get to that later. Your objective is to make a thriving colony and either genocide or befriend the greenskins on the island in order to gain control. This game was made by Wolf Entertainment, I think. It's very weird because if you look it up on Google or Steam, it says it was made by Dionic, which apparently is a battery company, but the game itself doesn't even mention Dionic. And when you load it up, instead you get the Wolf Entertainment on the loading screen, and if you look it up on the internet, Founder's Fortune pops up. Also, this game is Dutch, if you couldn't tell that from the dev name, and if you didn't, I don't blame you, because I thought it was German. Let's just quickly talk about the graphics and the sound. Graphically, it has a very simple art style that you see with a lot of the indie games, and it works here. Simple textures that don't require too much processing power, a nice, really cartoony look. It looks nice. It gives the game a bit of originality so that it isn't really washed away in the endless amounts of games that opt for a more simple and cartoony art style. And overall, it looks pretty good, and I mean that, because the way that this game originally looked... The game has really good sound, and I'm getting tired of saying good. The music part is really nothing to write home about. It does a very simple job of being background music. For the most part, I just put a podcast on in the background while playing it.
Who would do that? Who would do that? Who would campaign for that's
They
the most
fucking did it,
that is
Bravo!
the craziest
And
shit
you
ever.
can't suck.
Like I said earlier, this is a colony management sim like Dwarf Fortress or RimWorld. You start off on a randomly generated map with some people and some things and tell them to go do stuff. Due to the inherent randomness of these kinds of games and a good amount of your experience may vary, I'm going to split this up into two different parts. Firstly, I'll go over the actual mechanics of the game, mainly the colonists, because everything else is pretty basic, and then I'll talk about the different colonies that I've had. In this game, you start off by picking two colonists, which can be randomized. You can't edit these colonists, you can only hit the random button until you get something that you like. Each colonist will have different traits and stats that will either contribute or actively harm your colony. These can be either bad, like an allergy to the early game foods, a permanent mood penalty during a season, and being completely and utterly mental deficient and unable to learn any useful skills whatsoever. Or they can be good traits like being a battle-hardened veteran, being overall optimistic, and having an undying bloodlust for combat and battle. Your colonists also have expectations. These are like markers that decide how good life is in your colony. These are mainly based on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. As your colony progresses, more of these needs will be unlocked. In order from top to bottom, according to the game, these are food, shelter, self-actualization, belonging, employment, and at the very top, monetary compensation for labor. Once the current tier of expectations are met, then a new colonist will migrate to your island. With each new migrant, the next level of expectations will be unlocked, and those must be met for the next migrant to arrive. But there is a way around this. This game is like Sims mixed with a watered down version of RimWorld. Instead of random things just happening out of nowhere, you have a direct hand in how your colonists interact with one another, and a scroll menu that really reminds me of The Sims. Colonists can either like or hate someone, and they can eventually have kids. These kids can become extremely overpowered, and don't add another level of fulfillment either. However, kids can't work, so no child labor. You need to wait for them to get older, and that's right, your colonists can age, and they will get old and eventually die of old age. But with children, if you have someone with the teacher skill, they will be able to teach the kid, which adds to their education meter. For each point you get, it allows you to add a skill point into any profession once the kid grows up. This saves hours upon hours of grinding a person's stats. They also have a childhood experience meter, which goes up or down depending on how happy they've been over their childhood.
It has everything for you to sit here and practice. Look at me when I talk to you. It has everything for you to do with you sitting there.
The game then takes the sum of the positive and negative and allows you to give them a shit ton of good traits. Along with the expectations, there are also wishes. These are smaller tasks that your colonists will want done. These can either be talking to somebody, researching a technology, having a specific furniture in their room, or having something built for the colony. If you've done enough of these, they will gain a fulfillment point, which allows you to either add or subtract a negative trait that they have. The skill system in this game is fairly simple. There are 7 professions and builders. I leave out builders because it doesn't have any stats and anyone can do it. There's no botched construction in this game. I will say that some very important things are locked behind skills, and other things just make no goddamn sense. For instance, cooking, one of the most important things in a colony survival sim, is locked behind the first level of farming. Farming is also a locked tech at the beginning of the game, so you're going to need to rush that research and have somebody picking flowers or planting potatoes in order to get food, because most of the early game stuff that you can get, you can't eat. Your people will not eat raw foods. They would rather, and do, starve. And you're going to need to have a single colonist focused on farming, preferably with the quick learner trait, so that they can quickly get that first level and your colony doesn't starve in the winter. Lastly, with colonists, if their moods get too low, they will have a tantrum, which isn't as bad as it is in most games. In this game, they'll mainly just not work for a little bit or just take a lot of breaks. Okay, so that's it for the colonists, and we got that out of the way, and that took about a page of the script, so I'm going to briefly go through the rest of the mechanics. Building is extremely important as it allows your colonists to have a roof over their head and can act as defense against goblin raids. You can also build production spots and storage. Everything is snapped to a grid, so planning is pretty easy. Things like decorations or windows can be built to add the beauty to the house, however they are not necessary. They will, however, give your colonists mood buffs or debuffs if they're jealous of another colonist's room. As expected, you can build tools and better clothes at production spots. They can also turn raw resources into refined resources, for instance cotton into textiles and raw food into cooked food. Farming is very important for your colony. You need to make sure that your crops are in season or else they won't grow. Most of the crops you farm must be cooked to be eaten. Raids may happen, but they're pretty easy to either fend off or make the tribes friendly. You can either give them some resources when they ask or kill them outright. Research is necessary to get through the games. You're going to need to either farm crystals or buy scrolls from merchants. You got all that? It's a pretty basic colony management stuff. To put it simple, you're going to need to get a lot of resources, grind tech, expand, and take over the island. How you do that is up to you. Now, as promised, here's how some of my colonies went. My very first colony, I made a small wooden shack and just kept building. I had one guy collecting stone, the other guy collecting wood. Once I got farming, I got a solid stack of potatoes and tomatoes. However, I didn't realize that they needed to be cooked, so everyone just starved to death. The second colony went a little bit better, but I refused the goblins too many times and got swallowed by the green tide. The third colony, to be honest, this one went the best. We had food, knowledge, and more resources than I knew what to do with, all with 8 people working and gathering in harmony. We even had a few couples with 2 kids running around. All was looking good, until a member of the Merchants Guild came in begging us for shelter against a group of pirates. Not really thinking anything of it, I accepted. What I wasn't expecting was...
Captain!
Yeah? No! Dude, we have so much shit.
All I had left was the town doctor and a child. Yeah, they starved to death too. My current colony is going very well. Most of the footage that you've been seeing is from the current colony. The first year was extremely profitable, and after a few good trades with the Merchants Guild, I got some early stone tools, which is a huge bonus in the first year. Overall, everything is going great. I've killed off a goblin village who kept attacking me. We have a ton of colonists, we have a library, so knowledge is expanding, and some animals, cattle, food, everything's going well. I'm currently in my third year, and with a lot of stored up resources for research and food, things are looking like they're going to be going well. This is an interesting look at the colony survival genre, where a lot of games in this genre simply have you give your colonists tasks, and for the most part, they do what they want to do. In this game, you have direct control over your people, and most of the random events are text boxes, which can either take away or give some resources, with rarely anything happening being extremely unexpected. It's not only possible, but it's also imperative for people in your colony to have kids, as second and third generation colonists will become extremely useful, as they'll have more skills, more stats than the normal migrants. And it allows you to not solely rely on migrants, that the time between them coming into your colony gets longer and longer, eventually taking well over an hour and a half. I really like it. I've really wanted the ability for your colonists to have kids in RimWorld for a while, so to see it here is very nice, and kind of lets me imagine what could be if RimWorld had this kind of a mechanic. Overall, it's a good game. If you're looking for a new colony type game to buy, definitely give this one a look at or buy. It's currently $22 on Steam, which is its full price. Now before I tell you the final score, I've decided to break the score list up into two sections, indie and non-indie. My deciding on what is considered indie and non-indie is how big the publisher is behind them, as well as how big the game dev company is. So for instance, Paradox is a non-indie studio, but Tailworlds is. So that out of the way. Final score is a 7.9 out of 10. This game is not perfect. There's a fair amount of glitching, like people teleporting around, and sometimes the pathing just breaks outright. So parts of buildings that they'll be in, they won't be able to navigate. However, other times they will be able to navigate through it perfectly. And it has cost my colony a few colonists after somebody got trapped in their room and starved to death for no reason. The music is also very basic and just not all around interesting. Same with the sound effects too. It doesn't really make me care too much about what's going on. But overall, it's a good game, mechanically speaking, and there's a fair amount of fun to be had with it. Well, thanks for watching, and here's the reviewer list with the non-indie games coming after. Please send me any recommendations that you guys want to see in the future, and if you've made it this far, why not drop a like, comment, or even subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.